life can become very, very predictable and monotonous even. And we can find ourselves, even when it's really great, find ourselves kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again. And pretty soon, a routine can turn into a rut, or the common things of life become taken for granted. Like we just don't notice them anymore because we're too into our routine. We're too into the tasks that we have to get done.
When life throws a challenge at you, one thing is certain: to find a resolution for every issue, every problem, for everybody, there's more than one way. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the More Than One Way podcast. I'm Whitney Ross, and with me, as always, is Thom Rasnick.
Hey, Whitney.
Hey, Thom, how you doing?
Good. I'm great, actually.
Good. We have a special guest with us today. Kerry Ruff is here with us to join our conversation today, and we're very excited to have you with us here, Kerry. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it is my pleasure. Good to be here.
Great. Thom, you have a new development in your life since the last time that we've talked. Tell us a little bit about what's been going on with you.
Okay. Yeah, development's a great way to put it. So I have a new granddaughter. She'll be a week old tomorrow, actually. So she's brand new. Her name is Sophia Grace Armstrong. And she's
Nice.
just a lovely, lovely, what did you call it? A new development. She's a lovely, lovely development. In addition to being a great human being. So yeah, and it's just unbelievable.
Well, that's exciting. New granddad.
Yeah, being a new granddad, I think the thing that's most exciting about it for me, well, there's a few. But one is we went and visited the day she was born. We got to the hospital a few hours after she was born. And just being able to see my daughter and just be amazed at what my daughter and anybody who gave birth to somebody went through in order for new life to be there. And then to witness that new life, Sophia, is just unbelievable. It's just truly, truly, truly awesome. Awe-inspiring to look at this little life that at the time was about 5 hours old and think, unbelievable that this is here.
Yeah.
That this little being is here. And to be able to experience that, and like I said, experience some awe that my daughter was able to do what she was able to do to bring her here.
Right.
It's simply amazing. And I was just so touched. Sometimes it's hard to find the words, and I think that happens when you experience something truly awesome, awe-inspiring. Mm-hmm. It's hard to find the words, but my heart was just broke open to the world because of this little life, this brand new baby girl, and I'm different because of it, because of the experience.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of enthusiasm just in seeing people interact with you, just how excited they are for you. I mean, it's like that enthusiasm just spreads and ripples out almost.
It does. It's like the new life that she represents and that she is and represents touches everybody. And I'm kind of the catalyst for the people here in Knoxville who haven't officially met her yet. But it brings up memories from other grandparents and their experience, and they talk about their experience around it. And it just touches, ripples out like a stone in a pond. It just goes out. And everybody has something to say. There's very few people who don't want to say something. And it's all just so hope-filled. And like I said, and awesome. Mm-hmm. And to experience awe is something that human beings vitally, vitally need. To jump real quickly into the spiritual lane that is our world. Experiencing awe, like the birth of a new child, is vital for us as human beings.
How so? What do you mean by
Well,
vital?
I think life can become very, very predictable almost, and monotonous even. And we can find ourselves, even when it's really great, find ourselves kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again. And pretty soon, a routine can turn into a rut. or the common things of life become taken for granted.
Yeah.
Like we just don't notice them anymore because we're too into our routine. We're too into the tasks that we have to get done or the accomplishments that we're trying to accomplish. And all those things are good except for when they become, like I said, when they just kind of run us down into just ordinary life. So then we need something to interject that to help, in a way, kind of wake us up and shift us from our routines, monotony, and like I said, at its lowest in a lot of ways, ruts.
Yeah. And what a more awesome way than a new life
Than
to do
a new
that.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why I'm so glad Kerry's here, because here we are, two guys talking about birth, like we know, right?
Exactly. It's like,
Right. So we have our experience of that, and I have my most recent experience of that, and it's like I said, it's unbelievable and heart opening. But to really get at it, to really get at the awesome experience of birth and new life, we need a woman. And I can't think of a better woman than Kerry.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's high praise.
Yeah.
I have given birth 3 times, so I don't know. Does that make me an expert? I think if you give birth once, you're an expert.
I think
Pretty
you're
Agreed.
way more of an expert than Whitney or I.
Yeah. My experience was I was born. That's it for me.
Yeah.
I don't have
We
kids.
a shared experience as well. We
So there you go.
have all been born. And I think, Thom, what you said about people wanting to share their experiences speaks to that level of awe, because it's a moment. These are moments that mark and change our lives, and we want to share those. And when we find those other people that have just experienced it, I think it rejuvenates it in ourselves, and we have to reach out and talk about that. So, yeah.
So tell me about your experience. Let's go with grandmother experience since we're on the grandparent mode. What was it like for you to have your first grandchild?
Awesome. There you go. It was just awesome. But I'll tell you why. And I would say the word awe without the some or the full is what we probably need to start with. So my daughter was living with me at the time, me and her family, while she was expecting her daughter. And I was the only one home. My husband had gone out of town, so I was there because I knew her due date was coming up, and I wasn't going to leave. And she came upstairs and told me, "Mom, I think I'm in labor." And then she went immediately to the refrigerator and she made herself a big plate of food. And I thought, oh, I don't know about that. And she ate all through the day. And all through the day, I kept saying to her, well, my experience was, I just threw up through all of labor and delivery. And I thought, don't eat another bite. You don't want to have to deal with that on the way up. But she didn't pay attention to me, which is good because it turns out that was different. She didn't have that issue. We got her to the hospital, and there's this wonderful nurse. Her name was Angela. We called her our angel. She was just with us the whole time. Fabulous, hands-on, encouraging, helpful. But it got to the point, my daughter was in labor and said, now she had been fully prepared to have an epidural if she felt she needed it in the moment, and she did. So I had to leave the room while they administered that. So I went out to the waiting room, and while I was there, another strange thing, the whole day is strange because it's not the norm, right? Okay. So this strange thing came in the form of another pregnant woman, and really, she was in active labor, and she was in the waiting room and asked if I had a light because she had a cigarette in her hand, and she just said she really needed a cigarette, and she was going to sneak one in the restroom.
Wow.
Gotcha.
And it really struck me. Yeah. It was a complete opposite of what was going on with my daughter. There was My daughter was so focused on everything being good and healthy and just right for the delivery, for the baby. And it didn't feel like that from this other woman.
Right.
And she made a comment about her baby's been smoking for the full 9 months.
Wow.
So this wasn't new. And, again, it was just different. And I want to stress, everybody's experience is different.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got to go back into the room once the epidural had been administered. And it turns out it was a little bit late for that to happen. So she did not get the full benefit. She immediately got to the point where she needed to start pushing. So this is where this is where something just truly, I think, miraculous, awesome, amazing, whatever word you want to use can be interjected here. This is when that happened. She was lying in the bed, and she was doing the hardest job she's ever done. Labor is the hardest work you'll ever do. And I was there by her side and was breathing with her. So the breathing that I had learned in my birthing classes before my first child was born came right back to me. And I started breathing, and then she mimicked it, and we were breathing together. And in that time, it took some time, I felt transported back to when I was in labor with her.
Oh my gosh.
It was a strange sensation of being in two places at the same time, where my memories were so strong and palpable. And yet here's my daughter, truly two places at one time. It was incredible. And we breathed together, and I coached her to push, and I got to hold her leg, and all of the wonderful parts of birth. Because there's a lot of parts that aren't wonderful. So I have to say that. Lots and lots.
You get to say that.
I get to say that. I did it. But everything was going well, and that's why everything was wonderful. And she, the one final push, the doctor came in, and his head nurse came in, and let's just say that Angela, the nurse that had been there all along, she was great.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. So, but the doctor came in and kind of caught the baby, and there she was, and it was me and my daughter and my brand new very first granddaughter. And in that moment, the connection that had happened through the breathing just felt expansive. And my daughter talks about it as well in the same way, where it was palpable that we were being held, contained. We were within this greater energy. We were held in God. We were in the Spirit. Whatever word helps a person to describe that.
Yeah.
We were in that holy space. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
The room felt lighter and brighter. The connection was so very real. And it really inspired awe. And it changed my life from that time on. As did each of the births of my own children. The birth of my first grandchild was different. To be in a position where I've already done that, and now to see my child that I birthed, birthing, like you said, you noticed with your daughter, amazed at the work they've done. And
yes, and so I appreciate you so much telling your experience, because as we've talked about on many other occasions, there's more than one way that people have experiences around this stuff.
Yes.
I imagine the person who, ran out for a quick smoke had a different experience.
I think so.
Probably had a different experience, as did whoever else. And like I said, speaking from my side as the grandfather, I would never be able to talk about it the way you just talked about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, because how do you try to get at and get into and talk about the awesome experiences of being alive, of what life is about? And I think you did it. You captured it.
It was an awesome experience. Absolutely.
So Kerry, with your story, I mean, obviously a very personal story, very moving story. I mean, I can feel just sitting here with you, just how that moved you to be in that moment. And I think that's incredible. And I think, there are other ways other than just the birth experience that people experience awe, that people find themselves in those moments where maybe right in the moment we don't have words or descriptors for what's happening. And then as we look back on it, it really brings us into that experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a story about that I've read a number of times, and I've told and retold, and so I think it fits here. And that is, there's 3 women who went down to the ocean to see the sunset.
Mm-hmm.
So they were all standing there watching it, and the first woman was really just struck by the immense beauty of the sunset, just how beautiful it all was. And that was about as far as it went. She experienced this immense beauty, and then she kind of went on with her day. She had other things to do, and she went on with her night, I should say. The next woman experienced that wonder and beauty, but she also realized, there's no such thing really as a sunset. Really what we're seeing is that the earth is spinning on its axis, and as the earth spins on its axis, that makes it look like the sun is setting, so she got into the whole scientific side of what's actually going on.
Mm-hmm.
And she added that to the immensity and the beauty of the sunset, and that was another way to see it. And then she went on with her day. But a third woman came, and she had both of those experiences as well, the immense beauty, and then recognizing what's actually going on in terms of the spinning of the cyclical planets and all that kind of stuff. But then she also moved from just pure, almost like removed seeing into deep experiencing. And she experienced the beauty and the awe and the wonder of the sun, recognizing what the sun gives to us, gives to life, that there would be no life without the sun. There would be nothing here if it weren't for the sun, that she was somehow or another in that moment connected to the sun, and her life was a part of on some level, some of what Kerry was saying about she and her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She had that kind of a connection. And in that deep experience, awe was what popped up.
Mm-hmm.
Awe was generated. And I know that experience. I know what that third woman was experiencing at that time because I've had that experience. I've lived with that. It came at a time in my life when I was kind of in my early 30s, 3 children, job, doing the stuff of being a father and working, and just kind of hitting a wall, hitting a wall with the difficulty of the daily grind, the daily routine, the difficulty of, for me anyway, of asking questions like, is this all there is to life? Is this all that I'm going to be about my whole life?
Mm-hmm.
As good as it was, I just wondered if there was more. And so I was kind of struggling with that, and we went to Florida on spring break and stayed with my in-laws. And one day I got up before everybody while it was still dark outside, and I drove to the beach. And I was sitting on this little hill in Florida. I think it's the only hill in Florida. I was sitting on the only hill in Florida watching the sun rise.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just sitting there in that kind of place of, not despair, I wouldn't take it that far, but just real kind of confusion about what is my life about. And then the sun started coming up. And it starts coming up over the, out of the ocean, it looked like, it was popping up. And it was just so beautiful. All of a sudden, like that third woman, I was just caught by it. And it was almost as if time stood still. It was almost as if there was no time. And then all of a sudden it got a little higher, and the lights just started going, brighter and brighter and brighter, until I felt like I was just kind of bathed in light. Mm. And then there was just this deep, deep, deep experience of, you're a part of all this. This is a part of you, and you're a part of this. Kind of like what Kerry was talking about being in the Spirit or in God, however you want to try to name you want to use for that. And in that experience, once again, awe is the only word I can think of. Wonder might be another one. That I was a part of all this. And though it didn't magically wipe away all the things that I was going to have to go back and do, it made it seem different. Because it made me seem different. I wasn't just this disconnected person, isolated and living alone. I was a part of all of it. A part of everything. And nothing could take that away.
Yeah.
So that's how I know that third woman experience is a real experience, because I've had that. And so that's all for me. And that's something other than, in addition to, birthing a baby.
It's interesting. Both of your stories speak to a time where in that experience, like with Thom, you had that moment of kind of doubting or questioning or just seeking more, and in birth, it is that beautiful thing, but it's a delicate thing. I mean, it's a precarious moment for the health of those involved. So it's interesting that both of your stories include that element as well as this positive, overwhelming experience too. I think, we talked a little bit about that kind of line between awesome and awful, and just the closeness of that, and how kind of that experience, it almost is as if that experience is what enables us to feel that awe or that challenge, the balance of those two.
Yes, and I definitely think both are components, or both are components. You have awe, we have awful, we have awesome, but how often do our stories containing awe start with, I was in this unknown, uncertain place? I think that's an element that is just a part of awe. And I do think that's something we try to avoid. So as much as we as humans need the experience of awe, we might be limiting our access to it, trying to be comfortable.
Yeah, it makes me think of the whole of childbirth. The difficulty and the struggle and all that goes with being pregnant and working up into the point of where you actually give birth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm speaking for you.
Yeah, you are. You go for it.
Yeah,
Preach
it's
it.
Right. Right. I mean, just once again, as an outside observer to that, it's just amazing. And since I said before my daughter, she just amazed me, because it was like, wow, she went through this really difficult thing that was really, really hard on her body. And she's still recovering right now, week later. And who knows, Kerry would know better than me how long that takes. And I guess it takes as long as it takes.
About 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she's got a ways for that. But yeah, that's a part of the whole, what we might call the positive side of the awesome, is that there's this work that's involved in it. Like for me, I had to get up in the morning before everybody got up. It was dark outside, and I had spent, weeks and weeks and weeks doing that here in Knoxville, waking up, going out, and it was just right there at that moment where I had the experience that I had. But as you said, it almost takes all the stuff beforehand, all the difficult work, and childbirth is the most perfect example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that connection. It's not something, I guess awe can be something that just, sneaks up on you in the moment. But that idea of preparation, of a journey of sorts for it to be fully realized, I think that's a part of it.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the journey. I think it's been part of my journey. And Whitney, I wonder if it's been part of your journey. I wonder if that's something that you've experienced.
Yeah, I definitely think it is. I have a story that comes to mind just as we've been talking about this, and it definitely speaks to that journey and that struggle then leading to a different type of experience. My dad, when we were growing up, was a real water guy. He loved boats and getting out on the boat and doing things like that. And it wasn't my favorite thing to do, but often would just go along. And he had planned for us to take a trip with another father and son down a river, and we were going to paddle down the river and then pull over and camp and do that a couple of days. And so we were going along, and I was new to a canoe and paddling at that point, so I don't know how much help I was as far as propelling us down the river. The paddle for me was more something to splash with or hit at my friend that was in the other boat with. I mean, I didn't really know how you were supposed to paddle. My dad was one of these Eagle Scout kind of guys that had like the technique and showed that, the J stroke that you want to do and how far into the water and all those kinds of things. So he was always good to provide an ample amount of coaching, whether I really wanted it or not. I got a lot of coaching. And so as we were going down through the river there, we didn't know a lot about where we were going, but the gentleman and his son that were with us did. And so he said, if we get separated, you just want to make sure you stay to the right as we go down to this area, and then we're going to pull out there, and you'll see kind of where we're going to pull out. And so they went on ahead of us, and we were fishing and just kind of goofing around, having a good time. And it started getting dark, and we realized that we probably needed to go ahead and try to catch up with the crew that had gone ahead of us. And so we were following our instructions and staying to the right. And about that time, we heard this noise. It just started getting louder and louder. And there was a dam that was in this area, one of the dams where the water goes over the top of the dam. And so my dad knew about that and said, we were going to obviously be aware of that and pull over, long before we ever were in any danger of that kind of thing. And so as we were moving around, our boat started just kind of going side to side, kind of weird. And my dad was encouraging me to paddle more. And I was kind of like, why are you on me to paddle? I don't really get it. And then our boat started going around and around. And so we were beginning to be caught in an intake for this dam. And it was dark enough that we couldn't see. We could hear it for sure. And, we were trying to stay to the right like we were supposed to, but we really couldn't tell much at that point. So my paddling got a lot better as I realized that if I didn't, we were going to be in real trouble. And so through that struggle and paddling, and it seemed like it was a really, really long time. And then there was this light that started flashing from the side. And my dad said, I think that's our friends. We're going to paddle toward that light. And I remember thinking, well, that could just be like a light on the dam. I mean, it may not be our friends, And so we managed to get better control of the boat and paddled over to the light, and it was our friends there. And we were able to get out, and there was such relief for me. It was the first time I really felt like I was in danger that I had no control over whatsoever. And when I think back, I really don't remember. There are parts of it that I don't remember. There are gaps just because I was so worried about what was happening. I was so unsure of the result. But when we got to that shore and just stepping out and seeing them, it was a moment. It was just a moment of thankfulness, of awareness, but just, putting my feet on the ground and feeling my feet on the ground, even as a kid, and just thinking, I'm on the ground.
Wow.
I'm on the ground, and it was just this utter relief. But it was, I remember that moment more clearly than I remember the struggle in the boat and those kinds of things, even though that was intense.
Yeah.
But the moment of being with our friends and back to safety was a moment. So that's what came to mind for me as you guys were kind of talking about, a moment of awe coming out of that journey and that struggle.
Yeah. Well, and it's like there's a line there between what could be awesome and joyous where you are, and then what could have been awful.
Yeah.
Right.
There's, because a dam can be an awe-inspiring creation.
Absolutely.
Nature and human ingenuity all wrapped up together. Those are amazing things. But you don't want to go over one.
Nope.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So that's a awesome example. There you go.
Yeah.
Of that line.
Yeah.
And somehow or another that line seems to be that line of awesome, awful, a part of our life. You know, once again, birthing can really, really represent that. You know, one of the other things that I noticed as I was sitting there with Kaylee is how many times they come in to check her and check the baby. They came in like every other hour. Okay, and I thought, well, how in the world, before we had hospitals with people coming in to check, how did anybody ever survive? And you realize lots of people didn't.
Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, you realize the miracle that people did.
Yeah.
That life was able to persevere and make it through. And that is truly awe-inspiring. It's just amazing. Simply amazing. And I know, you know, to circle back around to where we started as a new grandfather, my new grandchild Sophia has shown me that, how awe-inspiring life is. And I don't want to forget that for a while. I can live on it for a while.
Yeah.
Well, and it's neat because it's just her presence alone has done that for you.
Yes.
Even before you have that incredible connection that you're sure to have over the years, just her being here alone has started that feeling in you.
And I have pictures.
Hey, all right.
If only this were TV.
And you're happy to show them, aren't you?
That's right.
Join the club. Now you're official.
That's right. That's right.
So if you run into Thom somewhere, you can ask to see a photo.
Well, I have pictures too.
You don't even have to ask.
Nice. Well, Kerry, thank you for being with us and sharing your story. It's always great to share personal stories with each other and just to hear just what our experiences are and just where those meaningful moments are. And we would love to hear that from you as well. If you're listening and you have one of those awe-inspiring moments, one of those moments that's kind of right on the line, we would love to hear that from you. We would love for you to share that with us so that we could just participate with you in those moments like that. And, you know, as we say, there's more than one way to experience awe and wonder. And we know that you've had those opportunities in your life, and we'd love to hear from you. So if you'd like to reach out to us, we'd love to have you do that. You can do that by email. If you want to reach out to us at hello@morethanonewaypod.com. Or you can also catch us on social media at More Than One Way Pod as well. And we hope that you'll connect with us, and we thank you for spending time with us today and hope you'll come back.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the More Than One Way podcast, brought to you by the Center for Spiritual Practice in Knoxville, Tennessee. We really appreciate your time and would love to hear your feedback. You can reach us by emailing hello@morethanonewaypod.com, or you can connect with us on social media using the handle @morethanonewaypod. If you found this episode helpful, we hope that you'll share it with your friends, with your family, with people you work with all the people who you know. Thank you and take care.